today's teenagers, if they do not feel seen or heard, they will by default begin a slippery trajectory towards believing that their life does not matter. What have you learned about suicide in all the years you've worked with us?
Talking about a human being has got, in their mind, gotten to a place to where there is no other way out. That's hard.
And the truth is that every young person, every person alive today has a value, an intrinsic value that comes not from what they do. A person matters for one reason. Hey everyone, it's Dean Sikes with the You Matter podcast. Thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. We've got a really great conversation I think you're going to enjoy. But before we get to that, I want to share with you, we got a book I'd love to give you. It's called You Matter, Finding Hope and Meaning in Everyday Life. You can just click below and you'll get your copy. And you know what? I would also invite you to follow us on social media. We invest a lot of time and resources into creating new content, and it's working. Would you follow us? I invite you to do so. Let's go to our conversation. Hey everyone, it's Dean Sikes with You Matter. Just want to let you know that today we have a very special guest on our podcast. His name is Jacob Mooney. He actually works with our ministry, and we're going to dive into what brought him here and to where we're going as an organization. So about 2.5 years ago, I think, you walked into a green room at a convention where I was speaking, and we had a conversation. So you'd have been, what, 18 years old?
About 18, yes, sir.
And when you and I first met, I wasn't quite sure how this was all going to work. Were you?
No, sir.
Don't lie, God's watching.
No, sir. I was not sure.
What made you have questions?
Well, I would say I was insecure myself.
Yeah.
Where I was at in life, I was in ministry school. I didn't really know what to do with life, what to do next. I actually wasn't supposed to go back my second year of school, but then I felt like I was supposed to, and that's a whole different topic. And the week before that school year, I was actually not planning on going to school, and I contacted the administrator and I said, I think I feel like I'm supposed to go. And so a week before enrollment, or a week before school started, I hadn't re-enrolled. I hadn't done any of the paperwork or anything. They were like, okay, we'll have you on. So the next week, packed bags, and we went to what they call immersion. And from then on out, I started going to school there the second year. So,
you know, it's what I think is so interesting, Jacob, about how this all developed was you and I met that Saturday, and on that Wednesday of that week, I was on the road. I know right where I was. I was in Mississippi, and I was walking into a Catholic high school to do a chapel service. And my wife had sent me a text, and Lori said, I really believe we're supposed to have interns in the ministry. So I had sent a text to a guy that is involved with the school there, where you go. And I said, hey, just wanted you to know I'm looking for a couple of interns. Does anyone come to your heart? I get out of the car at that school. I'm walking towards the front door, and this gentleman calls me. He goes, I got somebody I think you need to talk with. And he actually began the conversation with, to back up a little bit, he said, do you ever feel like you're supposed to have interns in your ministry? And I said, I was just texting you about interns.
that's awesome.
And he goes, I got somebody I want you to talk with. And so my wife mentions it. Rick calls me, do you ever feel like you need to have interns? I'm sending a text to Rick talking about, I need interns. Then he says in the same conversation, I got somebody for you. So I could, sometimes you just know when God's orchestrating something. So we get back, we have that meeting, you walk in, you're a little quiet, very respectful, very, very honoring. But I had a sense in my heart that at least there was something with which we could work here. It was going to be a work in progress, and boy, has that been true.
Yeah.
But you came in basically as an assistant, as an intern, just doing whatever. And that's one of the things I think is so important about younger people coming into business, into ministry and whatever. Be willing. Yeah. As long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, it lines up with the word, pursue it if that's what's in your heart. Because when you, kind of where I wanted to dive with you is when we met, your passion was business.
Yep. You
were in the ministry school, you were getting a foundation, but man, you were heading into business.
Yep.
That's what you wanted to do. And I remember the Lord asked me one day, and I remember right where I was when I asked you, we had just landed from a trip, it was late. And I said, what would you do if the Lord told you it was ministry and not business for your life? And your response got my attention. You said, I'd do whatever he told me to do. Unpack that. Where did that kind of commitment come from?
Someone asked me recently, actually, a similar question. I told them that the same story that I told you about wanting to go into business, and I had this 5-year, really 10-year plan. By the time I was 30, I wanted to start my own gym, but that I was going to build 5 other businesses to kind of fund that thing, and I wanted to not take a paycheck from it, just do ministry in a gym. And that person asked me, they said, "But now you're working for Dean," and I was like, "Yeah." And they were like, "So what do you do with your dreams?" And I said, "What dreams?" Because the way that I view it in life is like we're all on this path, this linear path, if you will, I guess, towards I guess we're all kind of living to die to a certain degree.
That should be a song.
It probably is a song. But they asked me, what do you do with your dreams? And like, I just asked her, I was like, what is a dream? If a dream that I have is anything outside of what the Lord wants for my life, then is it really a dream?
Because could be a nightmare.
Could be. It definitely is a nightmare. So to answer your question, I think that just kind of comes from a heart posture of once you realize that the creator of the universe knows you and values you for who you are and has created a plan for your life, why would you want to do anything outside of that?
So would you say that you're fulfilled in what you do? Even though it's people, that's one of the funniest things that I encounter with people who are coming when I speak at like ministry schools or places where they're really grooming people for ministry, is they see a certain side of the ministry.
Yeah.
They may see a lifestyle that they want to ascribe to. They may see a stage that they want to stand on. They may see, large audiences and lots of product and media and all this stuff. But they don't really see what it was like way, way back here. Yeah. So one of the things I tell our staff is that none of you were here when I started. Mm-hmm. None of you went with me in 12 years, went through 8 vehicles driving because I drove so much.
Yeah.
But there's a place in ministry where certainly it's spiritual.
Yeah.
But it's work. You're 21. Yeah. You work pretty hard. I mean, you work long hours.
Yeah.
I mean, you do. You wherever I go, you are. And so I know the hours I keep. So what would you say to the young people today who want to be in ministry, but they think it's all about what it's really not about? And maybe all of us have been there at one point.
It's all about what it's really not about. I think that
I love that my question has you kind of like you're standing.
Well, I try to think about the question.
It's always good to think before you speak.
That is what they say. I think a lot of times in ministry we just see the stage and we don't. It could come from many places. I think it's based off of the perspective of the young person, and that perspective is built by experiences. And if they haven't had the experiences in life to see what's behind the curtain, if you will, then I guess they're just kind of ignorant. They don't really know, which has pros and cons. Sometimes it can shield you from the fear of actually stepping into ministry, but other times it can cripple you once you're brought to reality. So a lot of times I see people my age that want to step on a stage, that want influence, that want this or that, and we have a plethora of influencers on social media that are just all over the place. They get a podcast mic and they get some coffee cups and books and whatnot, and they think that they've got everything put together. And when they're met by reality, sometimes a rude awakening. So for those people who want to be on a platform, the one thing I would say is you just check your heart.
Yeah.
Because if you think that you're called to do it and you're willing to say to somebody to their face that I believe the creator of the universe called me to do this one thing, then you better have the heart and the backbone to actually do what you feel like the Lord's called you to do.
Well, and you better have scripture and verse that gives you the authority to go do that. Yeah. Because a good idea is not a God directive. Right. A God directive always carries God's word, and God's word is what settles things. There's a lot of people, I think, Jacob, who get what I call starry eye syndrome. They see somebody on stage, they see somebody on social, they see somebody that's got this massive following, and the people they see become these untouchable, almost idols. Yep. Where they put them on this pedestal. I tell teenagers in high schools a lot, be careful when you meet your heroes. You'll probably get disappointed. Yep. What do you say to people who have, maybe they've got what I call, again, the starry eye syndrome, where when they see, like, you sit in a very unique position in that you actually see everything that goes on.
Yeah.
You do see the stage, you see the crowd, you see all that goes on there, you see the media, but you also see the times when I'm in a bad mood, or I didn't like lunch, or I want to go play golf, or I want to go do something else, or I'll be talking about something. Or you hear a lot of my phone conversations because you're always right where I am. How do you separate, as a road manager, personal assistant? How do you separate the person on stage and the anointing that person carries, and the person who tries to just be as authentic as they can be and as real as they can be? Because in that position, you're going to see wow, and you're going to say, oh dear God.
I would say that you don't separate it at all.
Explain that.
A person is a person regardless of the environment they're in. So that person is their perspective is built off experiences. One thing that I like to tell people is that everything in life that you do or say comes from something that you've either heard, seen, or felt. So if we have these 5 senses, everything in our life that we begin to replicate is something that we've sensed before. So if we have anger, it's probably because we've felt anger before, seen it, or whatever. But to be someone like you, who has been speaking for 34 years at 4,400 different events, 8 different countries, in high schools, middle schools, all these type of different places. I mean, every time that I've seen you walk on a stage or in a gym or in a teen challenge center in the middle of nowhere, Alabama, where there's 2 people, anytime
it's real.
It is real. It's real. And anytime that you've done that, you're the same person on the stage as you are off the stage, which is a harsh reality for some people to realize, because young people nowadays, from what I've seen in my own experience, they want this public figure, influencer type person, and they want to become that. And it's all pride. It's all idea. It's all these idols that people have. They want to become the idol that somebody beholds, because they have beheld an idol for so long. And we see it in the church. We see it in green rooms, whether it be at a church or whether it be in just conferences for business or wherever you're at in life. We have all these different people that we idolize. And one thing I heard yesterday, actually, from Corey Russell, which I don't know if you're familiar with Corey Russell or not, but Corey Russell was at Upper Room for some time as a pastor and everything. One thing that he said was, if the failure of your pastor basically hinders you in your relationship with the Lord, that wasn't just a pastor, that was an idol.
Yep, I believe that.
So if somebody else's life, you're putting that on the pedestal before you're putting God there, then you've clearly got something wrong.
So go back in time to when you were just a kid growing up. Did you want to be in ministry? Did you grow up in a home that was ministry driven?
Sort of. My parents split up when I was 3.
Right.
They remarried. I think by the time I was 4, my mom was remarried. By the time I was like 5 to 7, my dad was remarried. So on one side, I had a family that was a little bit more lax, we'll say that, and I had another side of family that was a lot more strict.
Right.
So growing up, I didn't really want to be in ministry, didn't desire to be in ministry. Actually, when I went to ministry school, I said, I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to be on a stage. I don't care where, I don't care. The only reason I'm here is to learn more about what I believe about the Lord. And that's what I want you to teach me. That's what I did. They actually offered me to speak several times, and I said no, just because I didn't want to.
Wasn't your calling?
Was it my calling, or wasn't what I wanted to do? I don't know.
Well, how would you define a calling? He's thinking right now.
I think your calling is what gets you out of bed, what drives you, your why.
Boy, that sounds familiar. Yeah. You are a good student.
Yeah. So I think that's what you're called to do. I believe that your passion, actually, what ticks you off the most is probably something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And your passion points to your calling.
Yeah. I think calling is all about the very purpose for your existence.
Yeah.
I think calling is not yours to decide, but yours to discover.
Right.
I think calling is something that God, from the foundation of time, put inside of your DNA and said, "This is," when in Jeremiah, I knew you before I formed you. I knew you.
Yeah.
That word knowing, and knew, are from a word that is related, like he intimately knew you. He put himself in you to become the person that you would become. So a lot of students that we encounter on the road are genuinely hopeless.
Yeah.
They're trying to find value in everything except where true value originates, and they're trying to live a life that causes them, and basically, if you live a fake, plastic, inauthentic life, you begin to become a fake, plastic, inauthentic person.
That's right.
Right? Seeds produce after their own kind. So you're much younger in age, proximity-wise, to teenagers than I am by a long shot. What do you think drives today's teenagers?
As a whole, emotion.
That's a big word. What does it mean to you? Emotion drives teenagers.
I think we have gotten so far off into emotion that we actually replace emotional decisions with truth. And we don't like to be truthful. We don't like to be authentic and real because
Why?
The times that a lot of people are authentic and real, they've gotten hurt.
And that's something I think we could really spend a lot of time on if we had a lot of time to spend on it. But if a young person is trying to be real and they get hurt or they get rejected, or they become abandoned, then by default they put a guard up around their heart, and they go, "That's never going to happen to me again," and they make a vow.
Yeah.
And what you vow becomes either a really great thing or a real challenging thing in your life. Yeah. One of the things that we've seen is this hopelessness that drives young people to a place where they don't think life matters anymore.
Right.
Specifically, they don't think their life matters anymore. And as you know, in what you do, suicide is the number one issue that we encounter every day on the road. Yeah. What have you learned about suicide in all the years you've worked with us?
It is, it's one of the hardest things probably to really wrap your mind around, because you're talking about a human being that has in their mind gotten to a place to where there is no other way out. Mm-hmm. And that's hard. And a lot of times, I heard one person say the other day that 90% of the time, or maybe even more than 90% of the time, a conversation actually doesn't change somebody's mind. Which, could that be geared towards a certain subject or a certain topic? Maybe. When you're talking about suicide, you're talking about somebody's life at stake. To bring that statistic in there would be very disheartening. To think that anything that you have to say is not going to change this person's life. I mean, that would be an insane reality. But from what we've seen on the road, I mean, I've seen student after student after student after student, a young adult, didn't matter how old or young they were. When we go to teen challenges at prisons or middle school or high school, I've seen person after person come up to you and just share their heart about, I had my suicide planned out. I was going to commit suicide today. I don't feel like I'm valued. I don't feel like my parents value me. Mm-hmm. And you hear all these things just countless times, and suicide being an option it's a terrifying option. I mean, you're taking control of everything that really has been given to you and just destroying it. I mean, that to have that capability is terrifying in itself.
Well, with every privilege comes a responsibility.
That's right.
Right. Today's teenagers, if they do not feel seen or heard, they will by default begin a slippery trajectory towards believing that their life does not matter.
Yep.
And if they believe that lie, so the antithesis, the other side of that lie is truth. So if the enemy's telling you that your life doesn't matter, then truth is your life does matter.
Yeah.
So one of the neatest things that we get to see every day that we're out is what I call the aha moment. When something is said and the ears and the heart connect with truth.
Yeah.
And here's the coolest thing about truth. It's always true. Yeah. You don't have to worry. If you tell the truth, you never have to worry about what you say, because it's always true.
Right.
And the truth is that every young person, every person alive today has a value, an intrinsic value that comes not from what they do, what family they belong to, how many zeros there are before the decimal point in the bank account, how athletic they are, how attractive they are, how intelligent they are. All those are just gifts.
Right.
A person matters for one reason: they're breathing.
Right.
And so in your world, and you live a very disciplined lifestyle for the most part. You do like cheeseburgers. It's a little concerning how many cheeseburgers you eat, but
They're phenomenal.
I get that. And I've never seen you walk away from food, ever. Yeah. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, of all the times we've eaten together, I have not one time seen you push food back.
I mean, we can go ahead and talk about lunch. I mean,
well,
sure.
Lunch. Well, we'd have to have someone else here to ask me that question. What are we going to do for lunch? Then I would know what the next step. But the reality is, for where you are right now in a disciplined lifestyle, one of the neatest things I think that I see in your life, as someone who's much older, been doing this a long time, is your level of commitment to the call. And I think that's something that's very much worth celebrating. I'm glad we got to chat today. I'm thankful for what you do, for the impact that you have, for what you bring to the table, literally. And I think we just go from here. All right. I really hope today's conversation touched your heart. It touched mine. And you know what? If it did touch your heart, leave us some comments. Our team reads every comment we get. Share this with someone that you care about. I think it's important to keep the conversation going. God bless you.